The Virtual Breakaway Podcast with your hosts Nick and Junior and producer Vince, bringing you elite fantasy hockey information to help you win your fantasy leagues and win at life.
Episode 62. Doing it remotely, but doing it nonetheless. How we doing, boys?
Doing well.
We're here.
We sound very excited to be here.
We're doing great.
All right, this is a Monday night episode. Yesterday's schedule conflict. Today, also a bit of schedule conflict, some technical difficulties as well. Nick is a little bit under the weather, so we said let's just do it remotely. But I can guarantee you the content will still be fire.
I have a second-born child that doesn't want to fall asleep, so that's my problem.
I have no comment there. That's actually, yeah.
Been there, done that.
We're all parents here.
You guys know him well.
All right, so what's on the episode today? Actually, first and foremost, let's not forget to like and subscribe on YouTube. Please keep encouraging us. The engagement has been much better as of late, so please keep that discussion going on socials, whether it's YouTube, X, Instagram, TikTok has been very active, so follow us on TikTok. If you want to be on our Discord channel, let us know. We'll send you a link. And that's it, guys. This episode is full of stuff. We've got our usual Odd Man Rush coming up. We have our Who Would You Rather, which was actually a pretty popular segment last week, so we brought it back this week with a NHL trade twist. Our waiver wire pickups, which we've already posted on our socials. So we'll just go over our picks and why, and we'll assess what we did last week. And lastly, we will surgeonize, a new verb, the Boston Bruins and Peter Pete checks and balances from Llama League. Are we ready, guys? This is going to be a pretty good episode.
It's going to be fun.
Let's get it started with our...
Junior's on the soundboard, that's why everything is off.
All right.
Odd Man Rush.
Yes! Hit it, Vince.
That was a terrible, you gotta lower the volume slowly, and, that's terrible.
Well, if you were here, you would do it.
Yeah.
You're not, so everyone will have to deal with my...
Ineptness.
ineptness.
On the soundboard.
It's not incompetence. It's if everything was recorded the same. Anyways, let's not get into it.
All right, Nicholas. Here's the first question. You are a big fan of Seagrass and would like to see him in a Habs jersey. So Seagrass is out 4 to 6 weeks with a torn meniscus.
Who's typing?
Who's typing?
I'm not typing. I'm hitting my keyboard. Who will be stepping up in his absence?
Well, that's a great question, Vince. I wish I had, Daily Face-Off opened in front of me so that I could actually see what I'm talking about here. But Zegras hasn't been doing much anyways, right? So I don't know if we're really that interested in who replaces him. Killorn, I saw Killorn score like an overtime goal the other night, and I was actually quite impressed that he actually has moves. But honestly, guys, Zegras out. Count your lucky stars. Put him on IR, and shove anybody else in there. It really doesn't matter. It's just not a team that right now. Like Frank Vetrano jumped on the top line with Ryan Strome and Troy Terry. Troy Terry's been doing okay. Strome not so much.
Well, Strome in the last 2 games has picked it up, but I mean, it's nothing crazy.
But nobody here really makes you feel comfortable starting them, other than maybe Troy Terry.
Yeah, exactly. Even
So-
Machado hasn't had the season he had last year. That's for sure.
Surprisingly, I thought he would have the opportunity here,
Yeah.
but he's just not looking good.
Ring that bell, Junior. Wow, that's a flimsy bell. Junior, Stolarz, day to day. Is this an opportunity for Wool to take back his number one position in goal?
I mean, I don't think he'll necessarily take his number one spot back. I think this is a 1A 1B scenario till the end, and then they'll ride the hot hand in the playoffs. It's very hard to replace Anthony Stolarz, who in 17 games played had 9 wins, only 2.1 goals against average, a 927 save percentage, at a 70.6% of quality starts. Those are fantastic numbers. So I don't think Joseph Woll has to go into it with trying to get his job back. I think Joseph Woll just has to go into it and being like, let me do my job, because he's been pretty good as well. Not as good with a 917 save percentage and a 50% quality start. But coming off an injury, you just think he just doesn't lose his team games at this point. I think if you have Joseph Woll, you don't expect him to have quantity in starts. You just want quality starts when he does play. And so that's it. They got 3 games this week, and one of them is back-to-back, so Woll will likely only play 2 games, and Stolarz should probably be back after that.
And look, there's also Hildeby, right? Hildeby coming up, and he could replace one of these guys. I know that all of these guys look very, very good, and they have been playing very well this season, which we predicted that they would. The only thing I predicted that maybe won't sustain is the fact that neither of these goalies actually play a lot of games. Woll, yes, he had a run on the playoffs, so yes, you could count those games, but it's rare that he plays a long string of games together. Stolarz has never played more than, I think, 30 games the last we checked. I'm just going off the top of my head. It could be 32. But we're talking about goalies that are 1A, 1Bs, and now you add Hildeby to the mix whenever one of those guys is down, and you're still set.
Ring that bell. All right, Nick, you own this one league, or I'm not sure if you still own him, but JT Miller is back from his absence, and he's come back and hasn't missed a beat. Is this just talks about the quality of the player, or just the team?
Well, I mean, JT Miller had left for personal reasons. We don't know what those personal reasons were. Whether it was mental health, whether it was something going on in his family, we don't know, and we can't speculate. But there's a lot of talk in Vancouver land that him and Elias Pettersson really don't see eye to eye, and him coming back and just putting up points, it's just like the emotional lift that Vancouver maybe needs. They got Demko back, now they got JT back. I don't own him anymore. I had traded him away, and now I'm trying to get him back. So I think this is a just phenomenal player, 31 years old, and he's the emotional beat of the Vancouver Canucks. I really hope he stays in Vancouver as well.
If Elias Pettersson had JT Miller's oomph, he might be unstoppable. But he just doesn't have it on a consistent basis.
Yeah. Different age group too, right?
Yeah, that's true. Different maturity levels there as well.
Yeah.
Alrighty, boys. Next, Junior. How long can Laviolette stay employed? What's the current perspective of the New York Rangers? And is it Laviolette's problem, or is it the GM's problem that the Rangers are having so much trouble now?
Oof, I think it's a bit of everything. I think there's a complete disconnect there. Shesterkin hasn't been Shesterkin. Trocheck, Zibanejad have had falls like we wouldn't expect, and they're coaching wise, he can't seem to get a spark going. Panarin is Panarin. He's the only consistent guy. And don't forget about Kreider. Kreider hasn't scored a goal, and I can't remember. So Is it all Laviolette's fault? No. Am I surprised he's still employed? Absolutely. But having said all that, all the struggles in the first 30 games that the Rangers have had, they're still only 1 point behind the wildcard spot. So it's still all there to play for. I don't think they'll finish top 3 in their division unless something drastic happens because they're already 8 points behind. But in terms of fantasy for their players, other than Shesterkin and Panarin, I'm not sure I trust anyone on a consistent basis for them going forward until they prove otherwise.
Nick,
And again,
this whole Trouba situation, which we can agree is not Laviolette's decision in all this, it's the GM Drury's decision. Do you think this had something to do with the disconnect that's happening with the Ranger players right now, with the way the whole thing was handled with Trouba?
So we spoke.
It's not only Trouba now that we're talking about, because there was also
Goodrow.
there was that Gojo, but there was also apparently an email that was sent out to other GMs from Drury saying that I think it was either Zibanejad or Kreider that were on the trade floor, and it got leaked out. So, like, as a coach, when you see your GM do this, what do you do?
Well, I mean that's just it, right? So now we're talking about somebody that's starting to tinker with a lineup, and he moved away a very popular player in Trouba. Nothing else really came back, right, from that trade. So you're dumping salary in the middle of a season that you're supposed to be a competitor. Granted, they didn't start well, and Laviolette's voice in the room might be getting stale, but that's why you always fire the coach before you start firing the players. In this case, Drury's firing the players and not the coach. For example, Zibanejad has a full no move. So you can't even get rid of this guy even if you wanted to put him on waivers, you can't. So Drury's stuck there, right? And I wanted to say one thing about what Junior said. He spoke about Shesterkin. Shesterkin is still at a 63% quality start percentage. So he's not the problem here. Last year, he had a 58% quality start percentage, and he had much better overall numbers, right? It's just the team in front of him is not, they don't care. They don't care. They're not producing, and they don't seem to really, like, I feel there's really a disconnect, like you said.
I just think if the Rangers are expecting to trade their players to try to right the ship, how do you do that with Zibanejad, who's having one of the worst years of his career? Kreider's having one of the worst years of his career. Like, you're not going to be trading these guys for someone that's going to help you instantly right now. That's not how that works. So I'm not sure what Drury's thinking right now, but unless you're trading a quality piece, you ain't getting a quality piece in return.
I can't remember who said it, but I'm pretty sure someone on this podcast said that Kreider was going to have an off year this year.
The whole team,
go
though,
back
is
to all the things you said, or just stick to that?
No. You only remember the things that are right now.
The whole team, though, in all honesty, the whole team is not doing well. Zibanejad's not doing well. Panarin, he was like the only guy at the beginning that was still producing, but even he slowed down, right? Like
Lafreniere too.
Lafreniere slowed down, and I feel like Drury's movement, right? Him trying to get rid of some of these older players for some younger players might be like him trying to push Lafreniere up the lineup a bit. I don't know. It's just it's so odd.
I think Drury is on the hot seat. I think he has a lot to do with what's happening with the Rangers. So we'll wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
Next, Nick Allmark, 5-0-1 in his last 6 games. Has he finally found his rhythm with his new team?
Well, he better, because Forsberg got injured in warm-up, and an E-Bug goalie had to run across a bridge in order to get to the game on time. But he's hot right now, and Allmark he's a veteran. So even though he was cold and not necessarily ready to play, he threw himself in there, had the game of his life. He's really doing well. Like, I think Allmark is doing well. He started off slow. It was a new team, but he has a .910 save percentage for the year, 2.52 goals against average. These are good numbers for a starting goalie. And now he has the opportunity, I guess, to continue running with it with Forsberg out. I don't know how long that's going to be. I just find it's interesting. They paid for a goalie, and they're getting what they deserve here.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the year, I said I'm always a little bit more reserved when there's an obvious need and then you go spend the capital to acquire that need. It doesn't always like
Pan out.
pan out exactly how you expect it to. And it started off shaky, but if this Allmark found his rhythm, I like where Ottawa's going. Currently in the second wild card spot.
Junior, two young players, Comesso and Greaves, made their NHL debuts this week. Who's got the brighter future? I think this is a silly question because they only played one game each.
But we're not talking about now, we're talking about the future.
Yeah, but they only played one game each. Like they
Listen,
played
don't make fun of Junior. He actually created the project. Me and you didn't do nothing, okay? Nothing.
The reason this was a question is because Drew Comesso was a prospect people already knew and were looking forward to, and Jet Greaves kind of slowly came out of nowhere. And Jet Greaves, in the 2 games he's played with Carolina so far this year, has been amazing. He has 2 overtime or shootout losses, but he kept them in the game. And if it wasn't for stupid penalties and bad calls, they probably would have won at least one of the 2 games. Look, a 290 goals against average and a 906 save percentage in his first 2 games in the NHL. Obviously, it's a super small sample size, but I think they really like this guy, and they're giving him a shot because the other goalies simply aren't cutting it so far this year. As for Drew Comesso, he's got a worse team in front of him, I think, than Jet Greaves does. And I felt so bad for him because in his first official start the other day, up until like 10 minutes left in the third, he was doing beautifully. And then they just kind of caved in and they allowed 3 goals in the last 10 minutes, and it kind of ruined his numbers, you know. I mean, going forward, Comesso has the bigger pedigree, but I wouldn't be surprised if Jet Greaves earns himself at least a 1B role in the NHL going forward.
Pum pum pum, the final one. Nick. The Bruins power play ranks 31st in the league. But their goals for 5-on-4, they rank 4th. Is this a question of time, or does this end up being one of those wacky stats by the end of the year?
I think wacky stat is the right way to go here.
Does that mean they're leading the league in shorthanded goals? That's why?
No, that means that they're creating the most chances on the power play, but they're not becoming goals. So the chances are there; they're just not capitalizing on them. So is that
Missing
basically
open
the
nets,
question?
or
Is it going to turn around at some point and you say the luck is going to fall in their favor, or is it just going to be one of those things in the end that it is what it is for this year? It's just something unusual, but it's going to happen to them, you know? That's the question.
What you think, Nick?
I think it's one of those things that, according to the microstats, it's going to turn around. So let's see if that actually happens and if analytics is right. I'll stick with that answer for now. I'm curious to see. Eye test versus analytics, right?
Hey, call in. My phone's turning back on. All right, that is it.
All right. That does it. All right, moving on to our new segment that we started last week. Who would you rather? There it is, Vince.
Look at that. Sound bites.
Sound bite.
Good job, Junior. Good job.
All right, guys, we're going to start with an interesting one. I usually keep positions the same, but for this one, because it was a trade in the NHL, I decided to change it up. So obviously, Blackwood was traded to the Colorado Avalanche for Georgiev, Kovalenko, and then some. But those were the 3 main pieces. So my question to you both is, who would you rather out of these 3 players, Blackwood, Georgiev, or Kovalenko, who had 3 points in his second game?
Well, I think this one's silly. I think
Shut up.
my 4-year-old son could come up with a better question than this. And Vince, by the way, you who said Georgiev is the future of Colorado, yeah, not so much anymore, eh? Blackwood is definitely Blackwood is definitely the way to go here. He was a good goalie even before going to San Jose, but it kind of took him a while to land on a good team. And I feel like now he's startable in fantasy. He has a 913 save percentage for the year, and that's most of the year played with San Jose. Is that insane or what? 45% quality start percentage, so not great there. But 2.9 goals against average, it's respectable for a San Jose team again, right? I think he has a chance here in Colorado to really run away with it, become the starter, and I picked him up in my decent league, which is a weekly league. So the daily lineups, but weekly head-to-head. So let's see what happens there with Blackwood, but he definitely has the opportunity here.
37 saves on 39 shots on Saturday in his first game. Gorgiev also won his first game, by the way.
San Jose's been surprising.
Yeah. Vince?
For a rebuilding team.
Jesus.
Vince, do you hear me? Is anybody out there?
Anybody out there? Listen.
Vince, you're live on a podcast.
I would say I'd go with Kovalenko. I don't think Blackwood's there for a long run in Colorado. I think Kovalenko has a fresh start with a team that's building with him, so and with the young players. So in this one, I take Kovalenko over both the other guys.
Not so silly after all, eh, Mr. Nick?
I think he just had to pick the opposite to make it interesting.
Well, what's your outlook on Kovalenko very quickly?
He had an opportunity in Colorado at the beginning of the year where everybody was injured, and he didn't really run with it. Now, you could say that other players have had the similar runs with Colorado where they had opportunities but never ran with it. Example is Newhook before he came to Montreal. So I'm questioning whether this is a player that will have fantasy relevance moving forward.
All right, so moving on to the second trade was Cam Fowler heading to St. Louis for, I think, a prospect and a pick or so.
And we apologize for the audio issues there.
None of which were very relevant fantasy-wise anyway. So my question to you guys is this, and we'll start with Vince this time. Who would you rather? Cam Fowler, Justin Falk, or Philip Broberg? Obviously, all defensemen on the St. Louis Blues. And Vince, you just froze. That was a funny screenshot I had the chance to snipe.
I don't know. I like Philip Broberg and what he brought to St. Louis when he went to St. Louis. I felt he pushed Justin Falk lower down in the defensive pairings. But I mean, for St. Louis to go get Cam Fowler, that means they're looking at him as number one pairing defenseman. So I think with Cam Fowler there, it hurts Broberg more than it hurts Falk. So I would go with Cam Fowler and see what happens.
Right now, he's paired with Parayko as the number one pairing, but has no power play time as of yet. Nick?
I really like Broberg, and I really like what he's done this year. I feel like I've been waiting forever for this guy to come out, and he just never actually had the chance because he was always injured. He only played 12 games last year in Edmonton. He played 46 the year before that, never really did much. But this year, he seems to be getting his own 12 points in 20 games. About a hit a game, couple of power play points. So he's doing most of it on 5-on-5. More than a block a game. Like, these are good. And he's seeing second power play unit, right? Fowler hasn't done anything. And neither has Falk. So I thought Fowler years ago when I first started playing fantasy, I thought Fowler was the guy to go get. Cam Fowler from Anaheim. He's never done it, even though he's had opportunity galore. He's a quality NHL defenseman. Just fantasy wise, I don't like him. If we're talking strictly fantasy here, I still think even though he's on a cold streak, Philip Broberg is probably the way to go.
Solid. All right. Thank you for that.
Adam, you're a check leader.
Moving on to a more interesting one. 3 different levels of young defensemen here. Obviously, one who's established, one who's, well, not established, but has been a year plus in the league and has made already a name for himself. Another who's beginning to make a name for himself in his first year as a rookie. And a highly prolific prospect with huge offensive upside. My question to you guys is this, and we'll start with Nick. Nick, who would you rather? Luke Hughes, Lane Hudson, or Zane Parekh? Now, I know they have 3 different contexts, but in a dynasty league for future watch, who would you rather, given the opportunity to select either or?
Well, this is a difficult one to answer simply because Lane Hudson's doing it this year. But let's be honest, he has 19 points in 30 games, scored his first goal, by the way, this week, and that just passed. But Luke Hughes did it last year, and he had 47 points in 82 games last year. So he just doesn't have the deployment this year that he had last year, right? Because Hamilton's back.
Yeah.
So very, very difficult to answer a question like this. And Parekh, I mean, we haven't seen him in the NHL yet. He has all the pedigree, but I've been burned by pedigree too many times. So I don't know. It's difficult for me to say for Parekh without having seen him in the NHL yet to see if it's translatable. All 3 of them are must-haves in Dynasty. And if you have all 3 of them in the same team in Dynasty, I think you're set for years to come.
Yeah, for sure. Vince?
Listen, I'd say guaranteed Luke Hughes. My thing with Lane Hudson is unless you guys think he's going to beat the assist record by a defenseman that's been set by, I think it was Phil Housley, or the NHL's been up and going for 102 years now, or whatever it is. The most assists a defenseman ever got was 74 assists, which I think is from Phil Housley, if I checked it correctly. My thing with Lane Hudson is he's not going to beat a lot of goals. So he's not going to get a lot of goals. So people were saying that he could be this point per game player, whatnot.
Point per game player? Wow.
There's people that are out there saying it.
You heard it first.
Yeah.
Vince is saying it.
No.
Point per game player, Vince said.
I've always said it. I think he's going to be a power play specialist with a few points here and there. He'll hit the 60 points at one point. But his shot doesn't scare anybody. Luke Hughes scored 9 goals the year Nick is talking about when he got 47 points. Like Nick said, with Parekh, it's nice to hear the potential the kid has. But how many kids have we heard that had potential and then are not? There we go. And are not producing, like another guy from the Habs, Slavkovsky. So
Perunovic from St. Louis.
Yeah,
still waiting for him to produce,
so right? With this one, I'd go with Luke Hughes all the way, and I wouldn't be surprised if Zane Parekh becomes second over Lane Hudson.
You just don't want to give him credit for it, eh? Like, you've made your decision. You don't want to give Lane credit for what
he is. He is so smart. He's cerebral. He's so smart,
you
man.
came out and said that Lane Hudson is a number 1 pairing defenseman.
No.
How many points do you think he's gonna have?
Yes, he could be a number 1 pairing defenseman. Well, he's playing as a number 1 pairing defenseman with the minutes he's
number
playing.
1 pairing defenseman. How many points can he possibly have?
He's pacing for what, 50? I said he would hit 40 points this year. If he started.
You said number 1 pairing defenseman. Will he ever hit the 80 points in your mind?
Well, Vince,
six defensemen in the league hit 80 points if they're lucky.
Yeah.
Adam Fox hasn't scored a goal this year, by the way, or maybe he scored 1 over the weekend. Does that mean Adam Fox is not a good hockey player?
Don't put him in the same battle as Adam Fox.
No, but you're saying he won't score goals. What does it matter that he won't score goals?
Yeah, but he does everything else better. I'm not saying it's because everybody is preaching.
It's debatable that.
like everybody's preaching on Lane Hudson that he's going to be the next. Like they're comparing him to Quinn Hughes. You can't do comparables like that because then if you do, then you have to put up. Will he ever put up the Quinn Hughes numbers that he's putting? And he won't. You just can't. Like, and if you think he will, then that's then you.
There's nothing wrong with saying that could be a ceiling.
I don't think that's.
Quinn Hughes in his first 2 years didn't score many goals. Last year, he must have worked on his shot and his shooting percentage was up. And this year too, he seems to be on a good pace. But
Look,
fans
are excited.
Question. I just wanted your perspective. I wanted to see the perspective of, what have you done for me lately? Or are you like a conservative? I know this guy is good, so this is the guy I'm going to go. Or are you a guy who risks it on future, like a Zane Perek? That was basically the idea here. But create a good discussion regardless. And I just needed an excuse to talk about Lane Hudson.
I was going to say that.
As long as you know.
After his first goal. Okay, this one I think is going to be very interesting as well. The idea behind this one was there are probably 3 of the best value contracts in terms of forwards and wingers in particular, even though one of them could play center. 3 guys that produce points more than most people expected. Anyways, I'll just put it out there, Nick. We'll start with Vince, with you this time. Yes, with Vince. So, Alex Tuck, Carter Verghege, and Jared McCann.
Carter Verghege just plays on a better team and with better players. Jared McCann can't stay healthy. And Alex Tuck, as much as his contract is nice, plays on the Buffalo team that, I mean, when you're playing with Barkov and Matthew Tkachuk, and then you mention who else the other 2 guys are playing with, I would stick with Carter Verghege.
But I agree. Carter Verghege is on the better team, and further to that, he is also a very comparable player to these other 2 guys. So give me the guy that's on the better team that's putting up goals. Alex Tuck right now scares me. Alex Tuck scares me a lot because that team is just not performing, and there could be change coming. So I don't know if he has a great contract, but I don't know if Alex Tuck is the guy you'd want right now between these 3.
Well, Alex Tuck, even in a crappy season, in a crappy Buffalo team, still has 25 points in 31 games. That's more than Verghege, I believe, has so far this year. The reason I put this question and I added Verghege was because Verghege right now is having a little bit less of a season, even though he's picked it up as of late. But
that whole line has. He plays with Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett. And remember how we were talking last episode, how Matthew Tkachuk was still hungover for the first 30 games of the season? Yeah, well, he's sobered up now. He's good.
Well, he has similar. So he has 23 points in 31 games for Verghege, and Tuck had 25 in 30. So similar numbers. Verghege usually has a tendency of putting up more numbers. I just figured if he was declining and Tuck was staying consistent, McCann, if it wasn't for his injuries, I think could be or should be the pick here.
I don't know.
No? All right, well.
McCann is, but you said it, McCann has to stay healthy. He's proven not to stay healthy.
26
and he's also
32 games.
He's also on that Seattle team that just rolls their lines. Nobody really plays more than other people.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to rely too much on it. That's all.
Very well. Well, that does it for the Who Would You Rather segment. And now, shall we... I guess we're not going to do any ads or drops in our Partial Breakaway Podcast League this week.
Why not?
Since how are you going to pick your...
You pick for me.
All right. So is there
I believe in you. By the way, so remember how everybody was laughing at Soderblom?
Yeah.
He had 2 wins out of 3 this week. So happy about that at least.
Excellent.
I think that's more than Saros did.
Keep talking.
Keep talking. He has to go get the teams.
Yeah, that's okay. We'll give him a little bit of time here. At least the empty chair stream is actually very enticing. It's a better look than when Junior's there. Oh, he's back.
I didn't
All
think
right.
you would have. I didn't think you would do any drops, so I didn't go grab the cards.
That's okay. I forgive you.
All right, so this is done. And this is the right pack. Okay, who are you dropping, Nick?
I will be dropping my goalie.
Oh yeah, it's true. You're dropping a goalie from the Chicago Blackhawks.
That is correct.
All right, going back in the pile.
Of course, he's
here.
putting it back in the pile. This guy. All right.
How do you
Give me
wanna do
something
this?
good. Give me something good.
Do I pick for you, or do you want to give me a number and I
pick.
just
Just
okay?
pick.
So I will pick here,
Ginya.
and this is it's blue, and it's the Dallas Stars.
Who has Jake Ottinger?
Nobody has Jake Ottinger,
Let's triple check this time.
but if I have,
You have nothing. You be quiet.
Don't you have Harley and doesn't Nick have Hiskinen?
No. He dropped Harley.
did I? That's the question we need to ask ourselves here.
Yeah. So I have Heiskanen. And let me just check. Junior.
Guaranteed, I have Harley.
Of course, because you probably put it in here. No, you do not have Harley, sir. Darlene Gossesbear, Eric Carlson, Makar Wierenski.
Yes, I dropped Harley for Carlson, who shot the bed, by the way.
That is
Tang was on
correct.
fire.
Jake Ottinger. Do you guys want me to spell it
Alright.
out for you? I could spell it out.
So Jake Ottinger. Nick, you can make the switch.
Yes, I can.
We are Monday, but you won't get points for tonight, though.
Just be quiet, you're way too worried about things.
All right, so let me see if I want to drop anybody, because I've been losing ground to Nick, and I can't stand it. My lowest point producing player right now is Eric Carlson, which, you know what? Let's see here. All right, I'll keep it. I won't make a choice. I'm gonna keep it as is for this week. Vince.
Yeah. I'll make a change. I'll drop Matheson, who's shooting the bed.
Oh, Matheson. So potential Lane Hudson pickup here. For
He wishes.
Never.
He wishes.
All right, let me just put Montreal.
You can't not be excited about the talent that this kid is.
I'm very
It's
excited.
impossible not to be excited.
I'm not saying I'm not excited. I'm very excited about him being there.
You just want to manage expectations.
Exactly. I just feel
Okay.
that if he has a season of, let's say, 60 points, people are going to be disappointed in that, which they shouldn't. Not rookie season, but I mean, like his second or third season. If he gets like 60 points, I feel fans will be disappointed, and they shouldn't be, because that's the range he should be in. Like,
Yes.
defensemen that get over 70, 80 points are like rare, right?
Well, actually, I was looking at that right now just for you, because but kind of to prove your point, right? So if you take a look at defensemen here,
Like last
Defense.
year, Nick, who got over?
so Quinn Hughes had 92 points last year.
Exactly.
Kale McCarr had 90. These guys are elite. Yossi had 85,
Mm-hmm.
also elite. Bouchard came out of nowhere and got 82. Remember that?
Yeah.
And then that's the top four. Then it drops to 76, Hedman.
Mm-hmm.
That's number 5. 73, Fox. That's number 6. 70, Dobson. Number 7. And now we're starting to drop into the 60s here. 8, 9, and 10. So 8 is Morrissey at 69.
Mm-hmm.
Then it drops to Matheson at 62.
Yeah.
And then at number 10 is Darlene at 59.
But
So we're not even in the 60s anymore.
no, but that's what I'm saying. If he could consistently hit this in the 60 mark,
He's a top 10 defenseman in the NHL.
100%. But
Yeah.
for people who are saying that he's going to hit that 80 to 90.
That's a nice outcome.
Yeah, exactly.
Being a top 10 defenseman in the NHL is a nice outcome.
But Vince, I don't think a lot of people are expecting him to be a point per game yet.
No, but
Like-
Junior, when you compare, meets the comparables that bother me. You can't compare Lane Hudson to a guy like Quinn Hughes and then say, well, I'm not expecting him to get 90 points. So don't compare him to Quinn Hughes because Quinn Hughes, whether, like, we can all agree Quinn Hughes can be an 80-point player every year.
Yeah, but did you think that when he entered the league? No, you didn't.
No, I know, but they're
So the story is still to be written
That's what I'm
for,
saying.
for
So
Lane Hudson.
you believe Hudson could be a Quinn Hughes.
I think that's his ceiling. It doesn't mean he's going to attain his ceiling, but he
I-
has a ceiling.
Guys,
of that.
guys. Quinn Hughes in 2019-2020, which was his first season that he played 68 games. I'm just looking at NHL stats here. 53 points.
Like, it's not.
That's
comparable.
insane.
It's not comparable, and
That's insane.
That's my problem. Is people that think that his ceiling is Quinn Hughes. I don't believe his ceiling is Quinn Hughes.
In his third year in the NHL, he had 68 points.
I think his ceiling is any defenseman who consistently gets 60 points. That's his
But
ceiling.
I could think his ceiling is Quinn Hughes. It doesn't mean I'm going to be upset if he doesn't become Quinn Hughes.
Yeah. Yeah, you're entitled to, hopes and dreams.
His floor
I'm hoping
his
for
floor
Fox he's
should
gonna
be 55 to 60 points.
His floor, I think, is I think his floor is closer to the 50-point mark.
If
Like,
he doesn't hit 50
Maybe
to 60,
a little bit less, 45.
then he won't be relevant for the Habs.
Yes, he will. 45 points is still top 20 in the NHL.
It's not enough.
It's not enough for you.
It's not enough for his stature and his type of player.
His stature is
What
what?
stature does he have?
What stature?
You're giving him a stature of Quinn Hughes. No one else is.
His physical
No, he-
stature.
Oh, 5'9". Okay, I get it.
What you guys are so like high on, that if he's short, he sucks. He won't make it to the NHL. I don't know. Can I
No,
pick
but-
your damn card?
Can you pick my team, please?
45 points is still very relevant in the NHL.
This one's green. Let's see.
Oh, the upside down Penguins.
Bum, bum, bum.
Oh, you get Letang. Carlson. Oh, wait, no. Penguins can't be in here.
No, I have Crosby.
Junior,
I have Crosby.
You have Crosby and I have Carlson. Take two. Take two. Here we
this
go.
is when we leave Junior in charge.
You guys you talk a lot of shit, but eat it. This one's orange. Ready?
Focus on
The Anaheim Mighty Ducks.
Perfect. Who's there in Anaheim?
Well,
Probably
you have
Zellweger and
Mintyukov.
Mentyukov.
Zellweger,
Yeah, but Minchukov.
Truba.
Minchukov
Hellison?
not doing very well. Let's see.
Mintyukov this year took a step back, eh?
Yeah,
A little bit.
I have him, and I think so.
Well, Zellweger's cold too lately. They don't score a lot of goals, guys, so it's really hard. I mean, Hellison
Yeah.
went on that little run there where he was putting up some points, but they're just
That's
not
what scared me. That's what scared me about Troy Terry for a long time. That team just doesn't score points, right? But you would think with Leo Carlson, second year, you would think with some of these players, maturing, that they would start putting up a little bit more. Hopefully, Seneke, who was shunned from the Team Canada, comes in and starts putting up some extra points as well. And we'll see.
I thought they would take a step forward this year.
Yeah, me too.
Lacombe, Vince.
We drop him next week. I'm still waiting for Brad Lambert to be called up again.
All right, so Vince. So to sum up, Nick drops Soderblom
Yes.
and picks up Jake Ottinger.
Come back,
Nick-
baby.
Vince drops Mike Matheson and picks up from the Anaheim Mighty Ducks Lacombe. All right, to the nitty gritty of the waiver wire pickups. Last week we suggested, Vince suggested Zucker of the Buffalo Sabres. After Monday night, it was already a win with 3 points in one game. He added to that later in the week, so Vince gets a win, giving him a record of 3 wins and 2 losses. Nick went with Bjorkstrand of the Seattle Kraken. Also a win this week, giving him 2 wins and 3 losses. And Lousy Jr. here did something he wouldn't usually do, which is take a guy on a cold streak. Took Hartman, and he got how can I say this in real words here? How about this?
0, 0, 0, 0.
Yeah, that's pretty much what he got this week. So that was a major fail, taking me to 2 wins, 1 loss, 2 wins, 2 losses, and 1 push. This week, Nick, you were up first, I believe. You are taking
Foley.
And what's the reasoning behind
Mr.
that?
Foley. Reasoning is LA is playing 4 times this week. And they have the second easiest schedule of the week. And Foley's been on a little bit of fire lately. So unlike Desmond Ridder and the Las Vegas Raiders, which I'm not watching, promise, on the side here. Foley playing with LA, it's kind of a weird pick, and if you think about it as he's playing third line, but the third line is consisting of Byfield and Ginot. So I'm kind of okay with it. He's also on the second power play unit. I just feel like he's played pretty well recently, and the amount of I really wanted to pick somebody with 4 games this week, and that's pretty much it.
You just wanted to take someone who plays Tristan Jarry.
Well, I mean that's right. Like second easiest schedule for the week.
Nice. All right. Then I went with Chandler Stevenson of the Seattle Kraken, who's 32% rostered on Fantrax. The reasoning behind that is there's no first line in Seattle, and Nick, you went to Bjorkstrand last week, and I'm just riding that tail this week with Stevenson, who's got 3 goals and I think 18 assists, so 21 points in 30 games or so. He's second line and first power play unit. So anytime on the first power play unit, I'll take my chance on that. I'm surprised he was only 32%, to be honest with you. So also playing 4 games this week and a decent schedule. I expect some more high-scoring games. Hopefully Stevenson gets me out of the loss column this week. Vince, you went with...
I went with Shane Pinto.
What a gamble.
Yeah.
See what I did there?
Wow.
Ottawa plays 4 games. So that's always a plus, just like Zucker was playing 4 games last week. And also, he was supposed to be like that secondary scoring for Ottawa, which hasn't happened so far. So hopefully he gets out of the funk out of these 4 games and gives me a few points.
All right, so that does it. Nick goes with Fogley of the LA Kings, Junior with Stevenson of the Seattle Kraken, and Vince goes with Shane Pinto of the Ottawa Senators. All right, to end this segment, we will say that we want you to stay away from Islanders and Vegas Golden Knights players because they are only playing 2 games this week. The teams playing 4 games are the Colorado Avalanche, the Edmonton Oilers, the Florida Panthers, LA Kings, Ottawa Senators, Seattle Kraken, Vancouver Canucks, Washington Capitals. Those are all teams that score a lot of goals, and they're playing 4 games. So anybody from those teams would probably be a decent idea. That does it for our waiver wire pickups for the week. If ever you forget who we chose, just go on our social and take a look at our post. All right. Finally, we make it to our last segment. And I say finally, but we're actually doing pretty good time here, boys.
We also took an hour to start.
We took an hour to start, also is true. But let's move on to our topic of conversation, which is the roster triage, where we start surgeoning teams.
Is there a doctor in the house? Is there a doctor in the house?
I'm a doctor.
If you don't know what surgeoning is, neither do we, but I can tell you how it's spelled. S-U-R-G-E-O-N-I-N-G, surgeoning. All right, boys, today we attack the Boston Bruins. We will poke the bear. So let's start with the goaltending. Swayman and Korpisalo. Nick, Korpisalo hasn't been too bad for the worst goalie in the league, as you said. And I quote Nick, of course, here. Worst goalie in the league. What are your thoughts on Korpisalo and Swayman this year, fantasy-wise?
Well, I mean, it's no secret that Swayman has not been looking good. And, I mean, the whole Boston team has really not looked that great to begin with. Ever since they fired Montgomery, they had a little bit of an uptick, but I'm not seeing much. Who has really improved since the firing of Montgomery? Brad Marchand. Brad Marchand is putting up goals again. But other than that, Pasternak has been sleeping at the wheel this year. I mean, he still puts up some fantasy points, don't get me wrong, but not what you're expecting out of a Brad Marchand, out of a David Pasternak. Elias Lindholm hasn't worked out the way that they were hoping for. He's not Patrice Bergeron, the second coming. Pavel Zacha is kind of, I just feel that this team is not. So every year we say that Boston's going to take a step back this year. They have no rookies coming up. Lysell hasn't looked great. McAvoy is not putting up points. So every year you're saying, okay, they're going to take a step back, and they always surprise you. They always seem to have that fighting spirit in them, and they have that Bruin in them, and they just surprise you. But not this year. This year they're not surprising me, or they're surprising me in the wrong way, I should say. Who's the big surprise for this year? I think Pasternak is the big disappointment this year off of this team. So if you want me to follow the prod sheet, sell high candidate.
Doesn't matter the order, to be honest. But
Okay.
Nick, I'll say, a really down year and disappointing year for David Pasternak is a point per game.
Yeah, it's horrible for him.
But for him, because he's been putting up 110, 113. He's put up over 100 points, or
But
pace
that's
for
it.
over 100 points 4 years.
And he could still turn it around, right? He still has
of course.
time. Plenty of time left. He might actually be the buy low candidate right now. That's what I would suggest. The sell high candidate, there's not really many to sell high on.
Korpisalo?
Sell high on Korpisalo. If anybody is silly enough to go ahead and buy Korpisalo from you, do it now. Surprise player, negative surprise again, Pasternak. So a negative surprise is Lindholm, right? I was expecting more from him. Rookie watch, really, this team has been competing for so long that they really don't have a lot of rookies. I was going to say Lysell, but he hasn't been able to crack the lineup in so long that it looks like Brazeau is the rookie to watch, on this team right now. Just disappointing. I like seeing Boston being competitive, and it's not looking like that's how it is this year.
And sorry, who was your sell high candidate? There wasn't any?
Korpisalo.
Korpisalo.
He's won a couple of games. Sell. Sell!
If by chance he was drafted. Vince, how are we looking at the Bruins here?
Listen, I think it's a year that they're falling off. They're falling back. I mean, like Nick said, everybody said this was gonna happen. Every year they prove us wrong. But I feel their weakness down the middle and their weakness for the defensemen to produce points is really hurting them this year. I think the Swayman contract is hurting them also just because he missed training camp. They always say players that miss training camp, man, you see it in the season when they come in, and in any sport, and that's what's happening with Swayman. He's not stealing any games for them, like he used to. Sell high candidates. I mean, like Nick said,
There's not much, eh?
No, like Brad Marchand, he's still got 32 games. He has 24 points, so he could be your sell high candidate. But your buy low candidate, Oliver Wahlstrom, who just got picked up from them. I mean, he's probably on waivers and not, or probably not on the team.
7% rostered.
He's from the Boston area, going back to play with his home team. He's going to get the opportunity guaranteed to play on the first two lines because there's not much there. So I definitely would say Oliver Wahlstrom is the guy to go buy low right now because he can. When you throw that dart, it might hit in the middle of the dartboard with him. So we'll see what happens. Surprise players. I mean, Jesus Christ. There's not much, huh? Boston, I mean...
Hey, it could be a bad surprise, like Nick said.
Well, I think the bad surprise is that their number one, number two centermen both have 14 and 16 points in 32 games. I mean, that's even the lowest team, the worst team in the leagues have better points than that from their at least their number one centerman. So I think Boston is in a situation they haven't been in a very, very long time, and I don't know if they're handling it the way they're supposed to.
I'll tell you my surprise is Charlie McAvoy. He's been, let's be honest, for $9.5 million player, absolutely brutal. I mean, he might be doing all the little things right, maybe, but at 9.5
For fantasy.
But even not fantasy, at $9.5 million, you better produce points. He's pacing for 31 points as a number one defenseman, playing 23 minutes and 50 seconds a game. That's more than one full period a game. He gets almost 4 minutes of power play a game, has only 4 points in 31 games, in 32 games. That's absolutely brutal from Charlie McAvoy. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why they're in a slump and they are how bad they are right now, because they're not getting enough offense from the back end. In terms of buying low, I think Swayman is a good candidate to buy low. They're not a team that allows a lot of goals. I think he's struggled to start. He has a big contract, so that could scare some owners, especially with the way he's producing now. And look, we saw it in loose bucks. His name has been out there in trade speculations by listener Umbi. So sometimes it just means that a buy low candidate just means that you went from not being available to now all of a sudden being available, right? And in terms of sell high, like you guys said, I struggle with a sell high candidate, but it would probably be nobody. There's nobody that you really could sell high on right now, and unless, like Vince said, if Wahlstrom comes in and has a great first week, then sell high. It's free money, But that's my take on the Bruins. Before we end the Bruins talk, before we end the surgery or the surgeoning on the Bruins, do they live to see the playoffs, guys?
They always find a way to sneak in.
No, I don't think so. I think this year the East is a bit too crowded.
It's weird though, East this year. Right?
No defibrillator coming in at some point and boosting them into the playoffs.
No.
You guys like these little doctor and surgery words I'm using?
You need offense in the season. You can't play playoff hockey during the season and expect to make the playoffs. It just doesn't work.
All right, so that does it for the Boston Bruins. Sneaks in and doesn't make the playoffs, according to Vince. Shall we move on to our Llama League, where we will dissect and surgeonize listener Peter's team checks and balances? So, to give you a little bit of context, checks and balances is currently sitting in second place in Llama. This is a big boost from the previous years. He's got a pretty stacked team. I'm not going to lie. He's averaging 2.17 fantasy points a game, which isn't among the top two in our league, but he does sit in the second spot. In a probably unfamiliar territory of probably having to buy, but I'll throw it to you, Vince, first. what are his team strengths, his team weaknesses, and what's his current outlook and his future outlook? And lastly, what does he need to do right now?
Okay, so his his strength is he's got a lot of high quality players. I mean, he's got Eichel, Pedersen, Strutzel, Kaprizov, Marner, Svechnikov. I mean, Quinn Hughes.
Did you say Pedersen?
Yeah.
Who wants to walk with Elias?
He had Ehlers, who's injured right now, but was having a phenomenal season. So I think his strength is all those forwards and young players he also has. Like he's got Cooley, Turka, he's got Zary from Calgary, Sider and Zellweger. I don't know how much I would put into that, but Berniers. And I'm going down the list, and it's just Eklund from San Jose. So, I mean, he's got a very good team. But Ryan Leonard from Washington, my biggest worry for him is next year. Because he's got Shesterkin, who's at 5.6, and he ain't staying at 5.6 next year. So he's going up. He's got Marner, who's at 10.9, so he's not going to stay at 10.9. I'm pretty sure Kaprizov is up for a contract, if not next year, in 2 years. I don't know. I don't know how he's going to fit all these guys under the salary cap if he keeps them all.
And guys, Allmark, after this year, goes to 8.25 million.
Oh, even Allmark. So he's at 5 now, so he goes to 8.2.
But just because you're on the topic, I'm going to jump in just to say that he can alleviate some salary because Hronek is an RFA in Llama, which he likely won't keep. I don't see him keeping at $7 million a year. And Nick Schmaltz, 5.85, also a restricted free agent at the end of the year, which he likely will choose to let go of.
Yeah, but the thing is, he gets rid of Hornick. His weakness is his defense right now. Because he's got Broberg, Chicherum, who's I think is due a contract next year. He
has Zellweger though in the pipeline at an ELC contract.
But he's starting him right now
under $1 million.
Yeah, but he's also starting Kaiser from Chicago, who I believe doesn't play.
I think that's because he has a bunch of injuries right now, right?
Hornick is the only defenseman, and Sandberg.
Yeah.
So
his current injuries are Trevor Zegras, Nikolai Ehlers, Philip Hronek, and Dylan Sandberg.
You also have Ziv Abuyim in the recently drafted category of things. Jonathan Lekarimaki, who should be a full-timer probably by next year. I mean, checks and balances. PDP, this is a masterclass of everything that he does in every pool that he's in. He is the reason why I drafted the way I did in LPHL, that inaugural draft where I was grabbing all these young guys and you guys were getting all the veterans. It's because there is a strategy of, sitting for a few years in order to have amassing all of this wealth of youth, and as they mature, you're throwing them in your lineup, you're keeping the ones you want, you're getting rid of the ones you don't. And I mean, you're asking me how can I surge in, how can I make his team better? Yeah, sure. I think he could get a defenseman or two in order to improve his team. I think he knows that as well. But really, are we speaking about somebody that if he stays patient just a little bit longer, he ends up getting more people anyways, with Ziv Bouillon and some of these other guys, right? So he has the patience because he's done this for years, and he has the resources, if you wanted to jump and make a move.
But
right?
Nick, don't you think this is the time where, because he's so close to first, isn't this the time to maybe unload some of his young players and reinforce that defense where he's lacking?
No, because his plan is okay. Yes, okay, I understand what you're saying, but like his plan is really to continuously be a competitor, continuously be in first, not just this year, right? So sure, he could maybe get rid of one or two of those players that he has, which he holds on to very, very, very close to his chest. And he'd rather work around the edges, right? Like he was interested in Wallman right before I picked him up. And he told me he was interested in Wallman right before I picked him up. That's somebody that could have helped him this year without him having to spend any capital to acquire. You know, is Peterka someone he's willing to move? Maybe. You know, Ehlers is injured right now, but like that's his oldest player. Ehlers, 28 years old, is his oldest player in offense. It's just unbelievable how he could be a competitor for so many years to come that he doesn't really have to make crazy moves.
I'll jump in to say you don't know what tomorrow will bring. But now you know you're in second place and the first place is within reach. I'm not saying you have to trade everybody, but there is a move to be made here on defense, absolutely. I think there are players he could afford to move. And now I'm not saying go trade a Ziv Bouyem to go get yourself a defenseman, but you have an abundance of riches on the wing. You could maneuver some of these guys to try to fill that void on defense. Because if you look at all the top guys in this league, they all have top defensemen. And other than Quinn Hughes right now, the other guys are just and Jacob Chikrin, who's having a phenomenal year.
Jacob Chikrin is a surprise this year.
Yeah. Like Moritz Seider at 8.55, not quite delivering offensively as much as we would want. Zellweger is still raw. That's okay. Philip Broberg started off well, had an injury, hasn't really picked it up yet, and doesn't have much coming up in defense either, other than Ziv Bouyem, who I think can make a big difference on this team.
Probably though a few more years away, right?
But still a few years away. Maybe some outside guys like Alphonse Frege or Muse, but these are guys that if they pan out to be offensively, like put up offensive points, like enough to be super relevant in fantasy, it was like a diamond in the rough that he found, right? So right now he's relying on Bouyem and Zellweger as his future, and Quinn Hughes as well because he's only 25. I think right now there's a move to be made on defense, guys, because he's within reach. He's right there. And for me, his weakness is his defense and his depth at center. We look at his team right now, and his centers are Logan Cooley, Jack Eichel, Elias Pettersson, and Tim Stützle. After that, there's Matty Beniers.
That's three superstars right
there.
Yes,
that's why I said his
and
depth.
even Cooley's having a pretty decent year. I mean, Vince could answer to that, right?
But
yeah, 100%. But that's what I'm saying. It's the young players he has starting are doing well. Besides like Mercer, which I feel is having an off year, but I just feel he needs to make a move because in the next 2 years, he's like right now he's got $9 million left in cap space. Okay, next year Shesterkin goes from 5 to 6, so that's already 5 to 11. Sorry, so that's $6 million. Almar goes from 5 to 8.5. That's $9.5 million. Now I know the cap is going up and it'll go up, but then he's got Marner he still has to sign. Like in the next 2 years, then there's Kaprizov that comes the year after that. There's like Eichel has to come the year after that. So there's Pete knows his stuff, so he's probably already thinking 3-4 years down the line from now. So he's probably projecting already what kind of contracts these guys are looking for. But I just feel a lot of these guys are gonna get paid.
And I think what you guys said before is right. If he does look to make a move, it's gonna be trading away from a place of strength to be filling a hole that's a weakness. Like if he's looking to make a trade, I think he's looking to trade a winger or two in order to get a defenseman or two. It's just so hard for defensemen because of the fact that defensemen are so rare. They're such a rare commodity in the NHL, point-producing defensemen, and we start 6 of them in this league for each team. So it's hard to find defensemen, and that's why I kind of hoard them as much as possible. For trade situations like this. So Pete, if you want, give Olympiacos a call. We're open for business always.
He just needs a defenseman who's going to give him more points than Kaiser will, like that, and Hornick. That's what he needs right now. You're not.
But what if he adds like Roman Yossi to this team?
No, but nobody's going to trade an elite defenseman to him. But
I could trade him a Roman Yossi with
there could be a
retention.
defenseman
For
out
what?
there that will give him 45 to 50 points.
Negotiation. Look, if he adds, let's say, a Roman Yossi on this team or a point-producing defense, if he pays to go get that defenseman, and now I'm saying Roman Yossi because I own him, he's neck and neck with Dan for first overall here, guys. And just to my point of the center depth, Nick, what I was getting at was not that his starting centers are not good. They're elite and probably among the best in the league. But next year, let's say you lose Jack Eichel to injury, who's taking his spot at center? Matty Beniers?
But I mean,
that's a drop of over 2 fantasy points per game. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying his depth there is not good because his winger depth is amazing because all these guys that play center, like Elias Pettersson and Tim Stützle, can play wing. So I'm not worried about his wing depth, but his center depth, he's one injury away from having to replace someone with 70% less production.
It's but I mean, you could say that about any team, right? If I lose McKinnon and I replace him with who from my center depth, right? Like Barzal, I think, or like you could say that about any team. Eichel is his best center right now, but he also has Stützle. He has pretty decent depth over there. So I just think that it's injuries play a key role. You're absolutely right, and I think I mean he's a stud. He's a stud general manager. I look up to him. I try my best to mimic him, and it's won me some championships in LPHL. So I'll leave it at that.
He's won. He's built a hell of a team. Like he's perfectly set to do whatever he wants to do. He wants to hold, and he'll still compete. He wants to add, he'll really compete. You know what I mean? He wants to sell. I mean, he's got young guys coming out of the wazoo to take over eventually too. So he's built something really special here, and he's going to be good for a long time in this league.
And just to give you an idea, in Fraps and Rigs, which is the first ever league that I had with him in it, I think he tanked for the first 5 years and got McDavid, McKinnon. He just stacked his team. He's won 7 years in a row, I think. It's unbelievable the run that he's on. And he's going to win again this year. Nobody could touch him.
That does it, guys, for this episode. We limped our way to the finish line, but we got there nonetheless. Sorry, that music is really loud.
Petey Pete!
Petey Pete! That's our surgeonizing of your team. You let us know what you thought about our takes. Don't forget to follow us on social, YouTube, like and subscribe, TikTok, where we've been very active, and people have been most engaging, Instagram, X. Give us a holler, guys. We just want to talk. Nick, feeling better?
Yeah, I think this is like therapy session for me. This whole podcast is a therapy session for me. It's good. It's good.
I like it. I like it a lot. I apologize for my poor hosting skills, but
I think you did a great job,
next
Junior.
week we'll be all together and it'll be better.
No, I'm not coming. Take care, everybody.
Sneak peek. What might be available, guys? A little Dukes.